You might not know it, but that sound is from one of the most important, albeit underrated phones in history. In this decoder episode, my explainer series here on the channel, let me explain what I mean. This is the Sidekick 3, the third generation of the iconic device and probably the apex of the Sidekick line. And the only one I could find on eBay in decent condition that worked, if I'm being honest. Now, the original version launched back in 2002 under the brand name Sidekick. The top-selling phone in the world that year was this, the Nokia 6100. Needless to say, the Sidekick kind of stood out. Now, the Sidekick's original brand name was the Hiptop, and it was actually sold under that name outside of the United States in some regions. And it was the brainchild of ex-Apple engineers Andy Rubin, Matt Hershenson, and Joe Britt when they started the company Danger Inc., named for the robot in Lost in Space's famous line of, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger!" Now, the idea behind it, though, was that it was to be a computing device to help you use the internet anywhere, not just at home, a relatively ambitious concept back then. Now, since your desktop was supposed to be used on your desk, your laptop was supposed to be used on your lap, and thanks to the style back then of hip-mounted phone holsters, it got the name Hiptop from assuming that you might carry it on your hip. And within a few months after announcing the device, even Steve Wozniak, one of the original founders of Apple, joined the board of directors saying, quote, "It reminds me of Apple's early days and the focus of building products easy enough for anyone to use. I'm impressed with the way that Danger has filled a void in the market and created mobile technology that is smart, affordable, and user-friendly." And not too long after its release, the Hiptop Sidekick became one of the first phones to truly popularize and even democratize, thanks to its lower than normal price point at the time, the idea that a phone could be more than just something you make calls with. Firstly, it had a full HTML web browser, instead of the WAP ones that were being used by most devices back then that were text-only, based on SMS, and just trash, really. The Sidekick browser was actually pretty clever, and it had proxy servers between it and the internet that would render web pages and then convert it for the Sidekick's browser, so you were able to get the full site, complete with the ability to use forms, see images, crazy, interact with the page, etc. Just like you would on a computer. Also, it used GPRS, or General Packet Radio Service, which was new at the time and was 2.5G if we're talking in terms of the Gs, by the way, and this allowed it to always be connected to the internet. No more pushing of buttons to sync on the user's part, all of your data was just automatically synced all the time. You could also send emails with attachments, and you even had AIM, MSN, and Yahoo Messenger built in, all of which worked way better thanks to that GPRS technology. And AIM was basically the de facto communication method for kids back then. I used it a lot. Something else it even had that was revolutionary back then? An app store. Yeah, a good 10 years before Apple released their app store, you could download apps directly over the network, and it would even bill you automatically on your T-Mobile phone bill. If you deleted the app within a 24-hour period, you just wouldn't be charged. Simple. As a teenager using the Sidekick 2 and 3, they both were, for the first time that I can remember, phones that felt like they made messaging in various forms on the go a viable and, dare I say, even enjoyable thing. And even the albeit slow internet was still handy to have access to in my pocket. I loved them. And it seemed, even at the time, I wasn't the only one. Celebrities started using Sidekicks. Some paid in campaigns, which was clever in and of itself back then as a marketing strategy.
The new T-Mobile Sidekick 2, with IM, phone, web, and more.
Everybody needs a sidekick.
But some were not. Famously, Jennifer Aniston went on TV and her phone rang in her purse. She took out the Sidekick and silenced it and put it away, but thanks to that very distinct look in the swiveling screen, it was pretty easy to know what phone it was. The phone ended up permeating through the celebrity world, and it became the phone that every young teenager wanted. I kind of remember it felt like it was the first phone that was actually like cool. The Sidekick line even had a popular Dwayne Wade and Diane von Furstenberg editions for the 3, and Juicy Couture and Mr. Cartoon for the 2. It kind of became the now very common blurring of technology, celebrity, and fashion. The Sidekick also did something back then that was unheard of, but is now very common, and that's store users' data in the cloud. At a trade show, a presenter from Danger took their Hiptop device and asked a member of the audience for a quote, wrote it down in the phone, and then put it on the ground and dropped a bowling ball on it, which completely destroyed it. He then took his SIM card out, put it into a new Hiptop Sidekick, and signed in with his account, and then showed off how his contacts and messages and even that quote he just took all automatically came back right then and there. Sounds familiar? No? Yeah. iCloud does come to mind. The next thing that the Hiptop and Sidekick ended up kind of changing about the mobile industry, and I imagine that they probably wish that they didn't, was cloud data security. Long story short, someone managed to convince T-Mobile reps to give up information needed to access Paris Hilton's cloud data of her Sidekick, a celebrity at the time who famously used one. And then they proceeded to leak all sorts of nude photos of her that were from the device, along with phone numbers of numerous other celebrities, other personal information, etc. Paris and the Sidekick both survived the ordeal, but you better believe that OEMs and carriers started to pay a lot more attention to user data security around about that time. Lastly, the Sidekick, while it didn't last terribly long, did manage to whet the appetite for people to want to do more on their phones than just call and text, and do so in a more user-friendly way and just better way than Windows Mobile and, say, BlackBerry were offering at that time. The iPhone would come years later in 2007 after obviously being able to see the Sidekick's success at the hands of its ex-employees and founder. And even Android, which Andy Rubin started while working at Danger and which was then bought by Google, would launch a year after that, also on T-Mobile, naturally. Honestly, I think it might even be safe to say that while the Sidekick was definitely not the first smartphone, it was the first one that got people and even companies clearly interested in this idea of your phone being this always connected computer on you at all times. If you guys want to know more about the Sidekick and its history, my buddy Michael Fisher, who you might know as Mr. Mobile, did an incredibly deep dive, and it's definitely worth checking out, and I'll leave a link for that here and below in the description as well. There you go. Let me know in the comments, guys. Did you ever have a Sidekick? Did you enjoy it? I personally did, very much so, and I think it kind of was the first device that I truly loved as a phone, and ended up sending me down a path of all the HTC phones and all these other devices, iPhones, etc. And so it just has a special place in my heart and wanted to do the video. Let me know what you guys think, though, of this video, of everything, in the comments below. Always love to hear from you guys. And if you like this video, please thumbs up it or share it. It's greatly appreciated. Also, check out the rest of the channel. If you like what you see there, please subscribe and ding the bell next to it, subscribe, so you get notified when I do new videos. Also, there's an email newsletter, link below. It goes out once a week. It has all the videos I do here on YouTube, plus tips and tricks and other fun things that are on the website that don't necessarily make it here to video. As always, though, regardless, thanks for watching.